I'm Teresa.
And I'm Callista, and this is Terrifyingly Typical True Crime. And we wanted to mention, I heard a couple people talking about it, and we just finished it recently, so we thought we'd give our opinions on the Netflix show Hostage.
Yeah, I never, well, we always like things that are, set in the UK. I think that's like number one. So I feel like I always have maybe like a little bit higher hopes of things that are set, not here. And that's just, not my bias. That's just how I think. But I mean, and I've seen, I think, is it Saran? It's a unique name. Do you
It
think that's
is. Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
sure how you pronounce it.
Anyways, she was in Dr. Foster and which was kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean, and I always like a female lead. It wasn't great. It was fine. What was it? 6 episodes? 8 episodes?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, and, it had Julie Delpy, which I haven't what's her name? I haven't seen her in anything except for, like, the Before Sunrise, like, trilogy with, like, Ethan Hawke, which I know you haven't seen that. So I just hadn't seen her in anything in, I wanna say, like, 15 plus years. But I like when same thing with a book, when I can't figure out everything that's coming. I mean, I obviously figured out no spoilers, but, like, that she sleeps with her stepson, I mean, I kinda saw that coming.
Yeah.
But, I didn't anticipate some people, were gonna die that did die. I didn't anticipate maybe who, all the bad people were. I mean, it was fine. I
Yeah,
feel like we're so picky about shows that, if it's not super stylized or super over the top, I feel like maybe I give it like a little bit, I don't know, more of a chance, more of a rating, more of a it was okay. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were some twists. Some of them were a bit far-fetched, but I mean, I can say that about a lot of things, so I don't think that's necessarily a knock against the show. But yeah, I thought it was okay. Again, if I feel like, as you said, if it had been like more or like I think the episodes are pretty short, like 45 minutes, but if they had been like longer episodes, like an hour each, and there had been 10 of them and they were really drawing it out, I probably would have said to give it a pass. But as it was, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like we're inundated we could talk about the streaming, all the different streaming services. I could talk about that for hours, but I think that we're inundated with so many options. I don't know if it just makes us just a tad pickier, or it seems like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it seems like the same writers are kind of regurgitating, the same thing, or, oh, this is going to happen now across the board with different shows. So I don't know. We just need some more creatives, I guess.
Yeah, and I do think, people comment on there being tropes for a reason. So there a lot of them do seem to follow like a very similar style or plot line. And again, I think part of that is, you're trying to get viewers, and if you can follow a well received formula, then that's what you're gonna do. But yeah, it can sometimes seem over the top or formulaic. But no, it was okay. It wasn't too formulaic, too over the top. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why it reminds me, they don't look anything alike, but The Bodyguard from a couple years ago, it's probably longer than a couple years ago, and I can't remember the actress's name, Keely something. Was she like a PM? Was she the PM in the UK? Whatever. Anyways, that was,
Something like that.
yeah, something like that. I like that a little bit better, and they really have nothing in common except that they were both in the UK. But anyways, alrighty. Anything else?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, let's get to the episode. Today, we are continuing our theme of female killer nurses with the case of Megan Jean Haines. This case takes us to Australia to the town of Ballina on the north coast of New South Wales. Ballina is a sleepy coastal town about 30 minutes from the immensely popular Byron Bay. Sadly, as we know all too well, even in a sleepy coastal town in an enviable part of the world, a person's baser instincts can shatter the lives of people they view as obstacles. In the early morning hours of May 10th, 2014, less than 2 months into her employment at St. Andrew's Village, an aged care facility in the town of Ballina, Nurse Megan Haynes had a plan. She knew what she had to do. She needed this job. She couldn't have another inquiry looking into allegations of misconduct. She didn't know if her nursing registration could withstand another investigation. She would most likely be fired, unable to continue working as a nurse. This wasn't her fault. It never was. The old people at this place were such a waste of space. They were disgusting and would likely die soon anyway. She needed to protect herself. Megan went to the medication room, swiped her access card, and grabbed 3 vials of insulin. She first went into the room of Marie Dara, 82, whose room was closest, and injected her with insulin while she slept. Next, she entered the room of Isabella Spencer, 77, and injected her with a fatal dose of insulin. Finally, Megan entered the room of Marjorie Patterson and was getting ready to inject her when Marjorie woke up. Megan, startled but recovering quickly, told Marjorie she needed to give her a dose of Panadol, which is a brand name for acetaminophen.
Megan had no choice but to enter the medication on Marjorie's chart, though she entered the time the medication was given as 11 p.m. instead of the actual time of around 1 a.m. Megan returned the unused vial of insulin to the medication room and went on with her shift. Working the night shift definitely had its advantages. Number one being that there was always less staff, so it was easier to move around undetected and unobserved. She had already told the other carer who had been working with her to go to another section of the care home and help the staff there. Megan needed to make sure that no other employees were around to watch her or to ask her what she was doing, especially since her supervisor, Wendy Turner, had told her earlier that day that she wasn't to go into Marie's, Isabella's, or Marjorie's room by herself. Another carer needed to be with her, but Wendy was no longer around. What the hell happened to make Megan think she needed to kill 3 patients? Shortly after Megan started her shift on May 9th, Wendy came to her and told her 3 patients had filed complaints against her. In a serious error of judgment, Wendy told Megan the names of the patients who had filed the complaints. Marie alleged that she was told to cover yourself up, you look disgusting, when she sought some cream for an itch. Isabella indicated that she was told to piss on your pad when she asked for assistance to get to the toilet. And Marjorie complained that she was rudely spoken to and roughly handled by Megan when she was helping her from the bathroom to the bed. Wendy told Megan that she would need to attend a meeting on May 13th to discuss the complaints. Wendy also told Megan that these complaints may be a breach of the terms of her employment and could result in disciplinary action. Finally, Wendy reminded Megan of the requirement that the care facility had to report to the nursing board as condition of Megan's nursing registration.
A little after 5 a.m. and about an hour until her shift ended, the carer that Megan had sent to another section was back and was standing in front of the nursing station when she said she could hear moaning coming from Marie's room. Marie's room was near to both the medication room and the nursing station. Megan told her it was just from a nightmare that she was having and told her to not go in there and disturb her. She needed her sleep. The carer acquiesced to the more senior nurse.
I'm in no way blaming the other carer, but I'm not sure how you get over knowing that you could have saved your patient from being murdered.
Yeah, it would be hard not to ask, what if?
Yeah, especially every night before you went to sleep.
Exactly. Isabella was due for her antibiotics at 6 a.m., and the carer asked Megan if she wanted her to administer the medication. Megan said no, she would do it. Megan needed to be sure that she was the only one that went into either Marie or Isabella's rooms, as she thought they were probably both still alive but didn't want anybody to try and help them. Megan hadn't been back in either patient's room since she administered the insulin, and she had no plans to. Megan's shift ended at 6:30 a.m., and she went home. A nursing staff member found both Marie and Isabella later that morning. Both women were comatose and both died later that day. Staff believed both women had died after suffering a stroke. Now, donning the hat of Captain Obvious, elderly patients die. Even when there is foul play, it is often either ignored or easily missed, and deaths are not automatically viewed as suspicious.
Thankfully, that wasn't the case here. Though initially the deaths didn't seem suspicious, the fact that neither Marie nor Isabella was experiencing any life threatening symptoms the day prior, and both seemed to have died the same way within hours of each other, made people skeptical. A toxicology analysis determined that both women had insulin in their bodies. Neither woman was diabetic, so the police were contacted. Who was Megan Haines? Megan was born in South Africa in 1967 to a white mother and an Indian father. Her parents separated when she was 6, and she and her two sisters lived with their mother. Megan grew up in racially divided apartheid era South Africa, which, no surprises here, was a nightmare for Black and biracial people. Growing up with rampant racism couldn't have been easy for young Megan.
It is easy to sympathize with the child in these cases, but not the adult that they become.
100%. Megan moved to Australia in December 2000, looking for a fresh start and to escape the heavy crime area in which she lived. Having completed nursing school in South Africa, Megan had to meet certain criteria before she could register and work as a nurse in Australia. Once she did, she became a registered nurse in 2001 and began working in Victoria. Documentation of Megan's problematic behavior began in December 2005 when she was employed at Box Hill Hospital in Victoria. Several patients filed complaints to the Nursing Board of Victoria. These complaints were investigated, and in May 2007, almost a year and a half later, she was found guilty of unprofessional conduct of a serious nature and was required to complete a course in professional ethics.
Later that year, Megan was working at Maroondah Hospital when a patient shared with a staff member the intimidating text she had received from Megan, which threatened to access her confidential information. We're not sure if this was a threat of potential identity theft or a generalized threat of what she could do with the patient's personal details.
Neither option is great.
Yeah. In No Way Learning from Past Bad Behavior in 2008, now employed at the Caulfield General Medical Center in Victoria, the nursing board received more complaints. The first one was from an alleged minor assault when Megan was accused of slapping a patient. Though that seems serious enough, Megan's behavior was escalating, and later that year, routine blood tests of two patients were found to contain insulin. Neither of the patients were diabetic. Suspicion did not immediately fall on Megan. The area where the medical center was located was in a wealthy area, and some of the patients had expensive jewelry that they brought with them. Both patients told the center's nursing supervisor that some of their jewelry was missing. One of the women was so frightened that someone may come back and drug her again, this time killing her, that she had a security guard stationed outside of her room. Unlike Megan's future despicable behavior, where she injected two patients with insulin on the same night, these patients were administered insulin a few days apart. Speculation did finally land on Megan, and police searched her home. Police didn't find any of the missing jewelry, but they did find a small amount of cannabis, which resulted in a charge for drug possession. There was no further investigation into the attempted poisoning of the two patients since neither was left seriously ill, and there was nothing that proved someone had intended to harm them. I mean, since they were not diabetic, I'm not sure how any conclusion other than they were trying to be harmed could be interpreted, but thankfully, both women were okay.
Or at the very least, that someone had made a major medication mistake, which would still need to be addressed.
You would think so.
Later that year, the Nursing Board of Victoria stripped Megan of her nursing registration. So the nursing board was on the ball, even if the police investigation was lacking. She applied to have her registration reinstated in 2009, but since misconduct complaints were still being reviewed, her request was denied. This left Megan unable to work as a nurse where she was living in Victoria. In 2009, Megan and her partner, Richard, were watching a CSI type crime program, and Megan shared that she knew how to commit the perfect murder. Richard took the bait and asked how she'd do it. Megan told him injecting someone with a fatal dose of insulin was the way to go. She volunteered that the body metabolizes the insulin, and any traces of the drug are almost non existent after 24 hours, meaning that the cause of death appears to be natural. Richard asked about the injection site, and Megan blew this off, saying if you know what you're doing, they won't be able to find it. We'd guess she didn't share with Richard that she was fired and her nursing registration was suspended because someone did, in fact, become suspicious that she may have tried, unsuccessfully, to poison two patients the year prior.
So, I usually don't watch any shows regarding our cases unless there is a really good documentary. However, I watched the Nurses Who Kill episode on Megan, and the actor playing Richard is so unbothered by this perfect murder information. I don't even know if I can adequately explain it. Of course, I mean, the actress playing Megan hits all the stereotypes of a vindictive nurse, but the actor playing Richard, he slumped in his chair with this air of a petulant teenage boy. I mean, a great actor, he was not.
I totally take your point about him not putting his all into the role, but maybe Megan said shit like this all the time. So at this point, Richard's like, here we go again. Megan's talking about murder. Let's hear what the crazy bitch has to say this time.
I mean, that's great and probably true.
A former boyfriend of Megan's who wanted to remain anonymous,
And who could blame him?
too true, said that every time Megan was fired, she would blame the patients and her employer. Instead of taking responsibility for treating her patients appallingly, such as in refusing to clean them and yelling at them, she was firmly of the opinion that nothing was ever her fault. Still, her behavior seemed to show that she really despised her job and her patients.
The investigation into Megan's misdeeds was finally completed in December 2011. She was found guilty of professional misconduct, and when she became gainfully employed again, she would be required to submit satisfactory employer conduct reports every 3 months. Australia had moved from having regional nursing boards in each state to having a national nursing board in July of 2010. So on February 10th, 2012, Megan again applied to have her registration reinstated. And this time she was successful. Having the suspension lifted, Megan began working at Sale Elderly Citizens Village. This job lasted less than 90 days.
Well, that's not a red flag.
Never. Looking for a fresh start again and hoping any new employer didn't look too closely at her various misconduct charges in Victoria, Megan and two of her three children who still lived at home moved to Ballina. Megan initially struggled to secure a job because of the mandatory strict reporting conditions that were attached to her nursing registration. In April 2013, the reporting mandate on her nursing registration was amended. Megan's employer was now required to provide satisfactory reports every 6 months instead of every three. On March 13th, 2014, Megan was hired at St. Andrews Village. After completing her probationary period, Megan was scheduled to work the night shift. Her shift would begin at 10:15 p.m. and end at 6:30 a.m.
Now we're back to where our episode began. When Megan left St. Andrews the morning of May 10th, 2014, she had no plans of returning. She called and quit 2 days later. With two of the complainants now dead, Megan did not attend the scheduled meeting to discuss the three complaints filed against her. Police searched Megan's home on May 16th, and they found some pills that she didn't have a prescription for, but nothing else pertaining to the deaths of Marie and Isabella. And really, we're not sure what they anticipated finding. Yes, Megan had a checkered past, but these murders didn't seem to be premeditated. It's not like she had a whiteboard or a diary entry with her plan for murder all set out. Megan had decided to permanently silence Marie and Isabella after she started her shift on May 9th, when she found out about the complaints and decided she couldn't have anything but positive reviews on her nursing record. Police also tapped Megan's phone and listened to a call between her and a man named Herman, in which she told him that two women had died at her work from some type of drug overdose, which was rather suspect since this was information that Megan shouldn't have known. At that point, a cause of death had not been made public. The police had initiated an investigation, but had said the deaths were from unknown circumstances. Herman asked how the police knew the cause of death, but Megan didn't know. While police were investigating the deaths of Marie and Isabella, Megan just happened to decide to move to Sea Spray in Victoria. Despite her attempt to flee, Megan was arrested on July 7th, 2014, and extradited back to New South Wales. After Megan's arrest, Marie's incensed son, Jeff, gave voice to what many people thought in blaming St. Andrew's Village for ever hiring Megan in the first place. He lamented the fact that a proper background check hadn't been done on Megan, or worse, that it had been and her questionable prior work history hadn't kept St. Andrews from hiring her. He said his family had put their faith in the aged care home and believed that their mother would be well taken care of and safe.
Charlie, one of Marie's daughters, said that her mom had told her that there was a nurse that was mean and rude to her and some other patients. And when they asked for her to help them with anything, she would berate them and wouldn't help. Charlie told Marie that she and the other patients should complain to the nursing supervisor, and hopefully that would make the nurse's behavior improve. Charlie now has a lot of guilt that she was the one that told her mom to complain, which is heartbreaking because she was simply trying to help her mom to stand up for herself.
That is heartbreaking. She was just trying to make sure that her mom was well looked after. I'm sure the thought that it might lead to her murder never entered her mind because why would it?
Yet, who is going to think that?
Yeah.
Megan completed an application for bail and, in what I think may be a first, decided to represent herself during the bail hearing, reasoning that she needed to care for her two children. So, no matter what she was accused of, she should be granted bail.
That is a first and a heck of a non convincing argument.
I mean, people need what they need. People are, I'm just never surprised by these despicable people, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Prosecutors obviously opposed the application for bail, arguing that Megan was a risk to the community and that she had been investigated for administering doses of insulin to two patients at another aged care home in Victoria. They also argued that she had family and strong community ties in South Africa and was actively attempting to have her and her children's passports returned to her after they had been confiscated after her arrest. Additionally, while the deaths were being investigated, Megan hastily moved from New South Wales to Victoria, which seemed to confirm that she was a flight risk. Megan weakly argued that she was forced to flee New South Wales while the investigation was gathering evidence because a police officer had threatened to kill her and her kids.
That seems legit.
I mean, really. Magistrate Les Mebet denied her application for bail, deciding that the risks were too high. Megan remained in custody until her trial.
Megan's case was scheduled to be heard at the Supreme Court at Lismore in New South Wales. But the first jury was discharged after two jurors acknowledged that they had connections to St. Andrews. One knew a patient that had stayed there, and another knew a staff member. A second trial was scheduled, but one of the jurors had a potential conflict, since they were apparently familiar with one of the witnesses. Justice Peter Garling, who was scheduled to oversee the trial, said that though it is always preferable to have a trial in the area where the crimes were committed, two setbacks were too many to try to schedule the trial in Lismore again. Consequently, the trial was moved to Sydney. Megan's trial began at the New South Wales Supreme Court in Sydney on October 12, 2016. Unlike in the US, the Supreme Court of each of the 6 states in Australia hears the most serious criminal cases, including all murder cases. During and after the trial, much was made about Megan's comment to her former partner that using insulin to murder someone is the ideal drug because of the way it metabolizes in the body and isn't found in autopsies. This is, of course, incorrect if the autopsy is completed shortly after death. For her part, Megan said she couldn't remember specifically mentioning insulin as an ideal murder weapon. But she did say, because she just couldn't help herself, that she sometimes liked to discuss her nursing knowledge when watching crime shows.
Because of course she did.
Please tell me how smart I am.
Crown prosecutor Brendan Campbell told the court that Megan was told about the patient's complaints the night before both women were found comatose in their beds, and that she maliciously and intentionally injected insulin into Marie and Isabella with the express intention of killing them. The Crown had alleged during Megan's trial that she realized that another complaint investigation could be disastrous for her career given her past misconduct findings. Defense barrister Troy Edwards told the jury that Megan was on trial for murder and not for being insensitive or even a bad nurse or bad person, trying to drill home the fact that just because she said callous and hurtful things to her patients and had absolutely zero compassion for her elderly patients, that didn't mean she killed them.
Imagine having to argue that.
I mean, if you don't have much, what are you supposed to do, I guess?
True.
He also glossed over the Crown prosecutor's evidence of Megan's many complaints and investigations during her time at various medical facilities in Australia.
After a 2.5 week trial and only a few hours of deliberation, the jury found Megan guilty of 2 counts of murder. Unsurprisingly, Megan remained stoic as the verdict was read. Justice Peter Garling called the murders particularly serious because Megan breached the trust placed in her when she killed these vulnerable women. Justice Garling said Megan's actions were deliberate and calculating and a flagrant abuse of power. Because of this, in December 2016, Megan was sentenced to 36 years, the maximum penalty, and she won't be eligible for release until she serves at least 25 years, meaning that she'll be eligible for parole in 2041. Marie's daughter Shannon said, "She'll never be able to hurt anyone else again. That's one less monster on the street." Megan will be 74 in 2041, so we certainly hope Shannon is right.
We have said in numerous other cases that employers need to do a better job of vetting their nurses. Patients and family members alike should feel confident that the medical facility entrusted with their care has done all they can to ensure that the patients have the best care. However, we don't live in a perfect world. There is a shortage of nurses worldwide. Staff is often overworked and overwhelmed, and things do fall through the cracks. An overworked manager trying to fill positions at an aged care facility, or a daughter telling her mom to file a complaint, or even a supervisor telling an employee the names of patients that have filed complaints against them and then noting that their behavior will be recorded and added to their mandatory review, none of these people are at fault. The only person responsible for the deaths of Maria and Isabella was Megan Haines, who became so enraged at the idea that her livelihood, her license, her ability to continue to work could be thwarted by two patients who just wanted some dignity in their care. Having never stopped to look in the mirror, she was unable to see that the only person responsible for derailing her career was the one looking back at her.
Next week, we'll be continuing our theme of female killer nurses when we head back to the U.S., to the state of Texas, to discuss the case of Vicki Dawn Jackson. All the sources we used for this episode are in the show notes below. If you'd like to suggest a case or theme for us to discuss, you can email us at terrifyinglytypicalpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us at terrifyinglytypicalpodcast on Instagram and at terrifyinglytypicalpod on TikTok. Feel free to leave us a comment, rating, or review to let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your opinions.
See you next week.